you suffer from something like anaphylaxis, if you are the opposite of throat goat and your throat closes up from contact, then you got to be responsible. You're no Nancy Reagan. You got to take your time to figure this shit out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another phenomenal episode of My Mama Told Me, the podcast where we dive deep into the pockets of Black conspiracy theories, and we finally work to prove that, yes, Trey Songz invented sex, but more importantly, he invented sexual assault. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Trigger was at the forefront of both. He's too damn good at both of them, you know? He's good at sex, but the man is a master at rape, and we need to celebrate him for his work. That's the conspiracy theory I'm spreading. I'm your host, Langston Kerman, as always, coming in hot, baby, doing what I do. You know what the fuck it is. This is the New York edition of the podcast. I'm in a what was told to me is a 1-bedroom apartment in New York City. And what I can tell you is them niggas lied to me, because a bedroom? No, sir. This is an open floor plan of studio. You know what I mean? It's a studio with a taste, with just a little extra, a little seasoning right on the side. But that's not important. That doesn't affect the podcast at all. It really just places my temperament, I guess. It sort of gives you a sense if I'm a little spicy in the podcast today. Just know it's because I shit where I sleep now, based on where I live. But that's not important, because my guest today, I don't think she shits where she sleeps. I think she probably sleeps in a completely separate space from where she shits, and I bet they're both beautiful spaces. She's a hilarious comedian. She's a wonderful actress. You know her from her work on Single Drunk Female, a show that is still out. It's on Freeform. You can watch it on Hulu if you ain't freeforming, but you still Hulu. And she will also be on the season premiere of Barry, a show I love dearly. I can't wait for it to come out. I think it comes out in April. I don't know the specific date, but that's not my responsibility, you piece of shits. Don't worry about that. Just worry about who the guest is. She's so funny, so great. Please give it up for my guest, Miss Madison Shepard.
Hi. Hello. Oh.
Hey. Yeah.
My gosh. Wow.
We like to make people feel welcome here.
Listen, I mean, from your studio apartment to mine, I love it.
Sure. Don't you say that. They said it's a 1-bedroom. Don't you take this away from me. How are we? How's everything? Are you well?
I'm well. I'm excited for all the stuff to come. I'm keeping a hopeful, manifested vibe, just being positive about my life, so good.
That doesn't sound like the way I approach things, but I'm excited that's you, to each his own, I guess, if that's how you want to do it. I'm more of a gun in my back pocket kind of man, at this point. I don't actually have one, but
okay.
Metaphorically speaking.
I understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not meander here. Let's not dilly-dally,
right?
As the streets would say. We have a really, I guess, a good, I think it's going to be an exciting conversation to enter into today, because your conspiracy theory, you said, my mama told me.
Black people are being targeted with an anti-vaxx propaganda.
Yeah, it's
Tell
true.
me more.
Well, I mean, probably the biggest example of this is there was a film that came out last year about medical racism, and it was, supposed to be this like 1-hour free expose about how the medical institution is killing Black people with it doesn't blatantly say the COVID vaccine, but it is clearly about the COVID vaccine. And it's interesting because I also, I'm not on Black Twitter no more because I had a little issue with Twitter and was busy wasting
Uh-oh.
my time. I was like, listen, I was spending too much time. It was affecting my mental health. I was like, there are better. Let me go walk outside or pet a dog or anything but be on
Yeah.
this cursed app. So I got off of
Wait,
Twitter.
before you go any further, you said you're not on Twitter anymore because you had an issue. Was this just a personal issue where you were like, I am not doing well with this? Or was it like, oh, they came for you in a way that you had to dismount from this space and never return to it?
Unfortunately, that was never really my journey on Twitter. Like, I don't think anybody
Sure.
I felt like I was on Twitter for 7 years and I did all the things and then nothing happened on my Twitter. So I was like, maybe I give it up. Maybe it's like not for me. So unfortunately, nobody cares enough about me to come for me.
Damn.
But it's a sad truth.
And listen, that sometimes can feel more heartbreaking than if they say they want to kill you dead,
Right. Indifference is a bitch.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was just like, what are you doing on Twitter? It's a waste of time. But anyways, I'm on Black internet and there's beyond this like film that circulated a lot last year. There's memes and TikToks and all of this sort of propaganda that's like really leaning into Black people's in America's inherent distrust of the medical community, which is real, but using it in a way to dissuade Black people from getting the vaccine which will protect them from a virus which they are disproportionately affected by, which is insane. But it's all comes from this group of basically they call it, I think it's like the Dirty Dozen is like the name for it, but it's the group of 12 people who put out 60 or 75% of all of the anti-vax misinformation in America. So, yeah, we were targeted specifically.
So the film that you're referring to, and I'm glad you're bringing it up so early in this, but the film that you're referring to came from former Senator Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son of the Kennedy that everybody liked and the nephew of the Kennedy that everybody liked for a while, and then they killed him. I guess they killed both of them, but one they shot, I guess, cooler than the other one. Either way.
One of them fucked Marilyn Monroe, so you know what I mean? Definitely.
Yeah, they all, the
cooler.
boys had fun and then they got taken out of here pretty quickly. But the point is that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think, is much more of a wild conspiracy theorist and sort of a person living in the outliers of the Democratic Party and not necessarily a welcomed voice, but he put together this film entitled Medical Racism, The New Apartheid, in which it did exactly what you were suggesting. It was meant to target Black and brown people to get them to open their eyes to the possibility that, in fact, the vaccine was wrong and dangerous and meant to hurt them.
Yeah. And I mean, that came out, I think it was last summer, during that 3 weeks when we forgot about the freaking COVID virus. We was just out maskless, you know what I mean? Just living our lives in June. This is probably, I think it came out before the Delta variant really got us. But, anecdotally, I worked during the pandemic when everything shut down. I didn't have a job. I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? And I worked at vaccine and testing sites in Los Angeles. And so I got to see firsthand directly from specifically older Black people who would be there to take a relative to get the vaccine. And I'd be like, I can get you vaccinated right now. You just say the word. I'll make you an appointment. We'll set it up. I have an extra shot right here for you. And they would literally be in the car holding the hand of their relative and say, no, I'm good.
Damn.
So that was before this documentary even came out. So I think it was that documentary. I'm doing the finger quotation things for the listeners at home.
No, they heard it. You can hear the finger quotes. We got silent mics on this podcast. So when you finger quote, it comes in hot.
It's loud. It's italicized. It's slanted. It's underlined. It's bolded. Documentary. So when this came out, I think it's just a kind of a part of a larger wave of stuff that was coming out about why the vaccine is anti-Black and we shouldn't get it.
Yeah, it's interesting because so much of this propaganda, right, is it reminds me a lot. Maybe this is a good way of entering what I'm trying to say. It reminds me a lot of when they told us that that the Russians had hacked our elections. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That
Yeah.
like they said this thing where for a while it felt like they had like literally gotten into our database and were changing the votes to not be for Hillary and instead for Trump. And then after a while, it became clear, oh, they didn't do nothing but get on Facebook and say some wild shit. And
Yeah.
then a bunch of us were already toxic and sick and willing to play wild shit games. So when
Mm-hmm.
they started talking, we were like, fuck yeah, I get down with this shit. So it wasn't a hacking of our elections as much as it was them just starting a conversation and us being broken enough to continue it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the vaccine, there's something like 5 billion people worldwide have gotten it. So like obviously, anecdotally, most of us survived it and are doing fine and are triple vaxxed and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
there's still people who, it's hard to change people's minds once they've emotionally connected with an idea or a belief. It's really hard. Like, even though, like, that whole stuff about the election, my mom still says wild tinfoil hat shit about the Russians' involvement in our election.
Right.
But she was the main one sharing shit on Facebook. I'm like, Mom, this isn't even a reputable source. Where did you read the article? She's like, no, but the headline says it all. I'm like, well, it's hard to disengage our minds and hearts from a topic if we believe it to be true, you know?
I think what makes now so difficult is that we are all trying to be a helpful resource to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is me trying to approach this, I guess, with less cynicism than I often approach a lot of things. But I do think that there's a part of us that's at least trying to be a helpful resource where we go like, I read this thing about the vaccine or about COVID or about like all of the shit. And then I'm willing to go share that information with the world with the intent that like
Mm-hmm.
I want the people around me to also be awakened to that truth. But then you see what truth they're trying to awake us to and you're like, bro, that's dumb. It's not
Yeah, it's
smart.
not real.
You didn't read. Like you
Yeah.
can't I can't be awakened if you didn't read.
Yeah, no. I mean, what's the name of that gal on TikTok who came up with that? Like, it's an upside down triangle where it's like a conspiracy theory will keep you on the hook until it starts to get weird, and like everyone sort of has this breaking point, but some people never get off, and so then they just continue to go on this massive journey of disinformation because they're
Right.
hooked. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, it feels like this unbeatable game almost of like it like you said, it's once you're on the hook, you can't fucking get off the hook. It just it continues to latch onto in a way that, you
I'm
what do you
somebody who
do?
gets off the hook quick. I'm like, you know what? This is a lot of work. At a certain point, I'm like, it's too much. Listen, I was a B student and I don't need to like, you know what I mean? I don't need to
Yeah.
like stay involved and do my own research. Shit, I don't have so many books I haven't read sitting on my nightstand right now. Why do I need to do my own research about something? It's like, ugh, I'm done.
Yeah, and frankly, most of us were B students and below. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason A students are A students and it represents a type of exceptional care in reading and effort, or at least pretend learning the game enough to pretend to
Mm-hmm.
do so. But it's the reality is a lot of us probably couldn't do effective research even if we wanted to.
My
And to
God.
pretend like suddenly at 38 you've
Mm-hmm.
like you've nailed down how to break down a peer-reviewed article, you're full of shit. You don't know anything.
I mean, listen, even in like, I was just like, let me go to the CDC website just to like look at an article or two before I come in and speak on this like topic with you. And like, I started scrolling and I was like, well, where are the picture graphs? I mean, just
Yeah.
give me the highlights. I was like 2 paragraphs in and I was like, well, I got to find another source because I'm not reading this shit right now.
No, I feel the exact same way. I'm literally attempting to make sense of an article as we speak, just to be able to use some of that resource when we talk about the research and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And a whole lot of it would be made easier if there was like a thumb that, or like one of them pictures where it's like filling up to the brim and you just look at
Yeah.
the number on the brim and you're like, oh, okay, I understand this. But it's all these lofty words and medical terms that I'm not familiar with. So the article's not going to make sense to me.
I immediately get lost when it's too many percentages and then like long scientific words that I don't know. And I'm like, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah. What fucks me up is when they do percentages. Like they'll say like this group represented this percentage of this thing. And then afterwards they'll say what sounds like very similar language and give you a different percentage. And then I go, all right, well, which one is the percent I was looking for what I need? You know what I mean? Like I don't know how to always parse out the difference in terms of like what these numbers represent. And that truly is the reason people go to school is to be able to like differentiate between what things mean. And I didn't do that. I went to school for fucking poetry. I have no clue what any of this is.
Yeah, I dropped out of acting school. So, you know what I mean? Like, honestly, same boat, different trip.
Hey, but you're doing it now, huh? Look at you. A whole bunch of fucking idiots probably stayed in school and aren't on TV shows. Idiots.
Right. People who fucking took math beyond geometry. Good for them, I guess.
Yeah. No. You guys should feel stupid.
Yeah, dummies.
Madison said, suck her dick, you dum-dums. Okay. So you're clearly not on board with, or at least from what I'm gathering, you're not an anti-vaxxer. You're not a person on board with any of what this propaganda is asking us to believe. I guess the question I want to ask you before we go to break is, do you feel, and I'm specifically asking this from, I guess, a Black perspective, whatever that means, but do you feel like you at least understand or connect with why this anti-vax propaganda matters so much to the Black community?
I mean, again, just an anecdote here, but when I was working at the vaccine site, when I found out in November that there would be a vaccine coming and that because we were working, well, it was testing at the time, but we were working in testing and vaccines, that we would be first on the list to get the vaccine. Initially, I was like looking around at other Black people at the site, like, we're not going to do this, right? Like,
yeah.
Y'all go ahead. Y'all first. Go ahead.
Right.
I'll catch up with you later. Like, I don't think so. It's not for me. And then came January 1 and they were like, so who wants to get the vaccine? And I raised my hand first. Shockingly.
Whoa, you sell out.
Let me tell you, not of the people. You know what I mean? And not only that, but I looked at other Black people and I was like, you have to get it. You know what I mean? You have to get it. Like, we're getting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I understand why people have been unsure of getting it, but just due to the history and all that. But like, frankly, like, people are smarter than me and I just got to listen to like the scientists and,
Yeah.
helps,
I think that's similar to how I sort of approached it. I didn't want to be first in line by any means. And I had a lot of hesitancy that you can probably even track in the communication on this podcast. There was points where I'm like, I don't know, motherfucker. I'm not saying don't do it, but take your time. But then it reached a point where it was like, oh, I really want to go back outside. And I think this is how I do it. So I'm willing to get the shot because whatever, especially the fear, like I think I relate most with the fear that the government has obviously demonstrated a very intentional history of poisoning Black people and other types of people of color over the course of centuries, right? That like literally if you look throughout like the type of shit that they've done, Puerto Rico is the great example. Like literally they have made it so that infertility in Puerto Rico is like the largest in any country in the world because of, and I know Puerto Rico's not technically a country, but the point is,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
that territory is so fucked up because of intentional work that the government was doing to basically make women infertile. Like, it is not, we would be remiss, I guess, to pretend as if like the government doesn't have ill will at times towards people of color or poor people or whatever it is. That said, if that's the fear, I can respect it. Let's negotiate. Let's figure out an answer. But if the fear is that these motherfuckers are microchipping me, or that like this is going to be a way that they're going to track my movements, go ahead, dog. I'm just going to bed at around 9:30 to 10:30 every day. You're not getting anything special out of me. I'm not tripping about that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Damn.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I get it. I was hesitant, but you found your way to the other side of it. And hopefully they are microchipping us and they're real disappointed with what they're finding and they'll just shut the chips down, you know?
You know, I'll be honest, the real microchip is already in your hand. You know, you already got it. They're already tracking you. Forget
wait a minute.
So that's how they get you.
That's how they get you. I don't disagree.
Sweetie, if the government wants to find your ass, they gonna find you.
They gonna find
Trust
you.
on it. And it's not because they stuck a, 5 milliliters, or not even milliliters, whatever. They stuck a percentage of a syringe in your arm. It's not because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, 5 milliliters in my head sounded like liters and not milliliters. You know what I mean? And I was like, God damn, we got 5 liters of vaccine. That will kill us. That is why everybody's so concerned with what this is.
You know what? I started to say the number of what I tried to remember it was, but then I was like, bitch, you barely made it through earth science. Come on now.
You don't know what you're talking about, and that's okay.
I'm dumb. It's okay.
We're all thriving as best we can. We're okay. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more Madison Shepard and more My Mama Told Me. And we are back.
Give me a turn to speak.
Yeah, we're back here with more Madison Shepard, more My Mama Told Me. We're still talking about the possibility that Black people are being intentionally targeted by propaganda, anti-vaxx propaganda. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that Black people are similarly being targeted by vaccine propaganda? Are they making some weird extra effort with us on that side of things?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if you remember last year. I don't see it as much this year, but they always have some medical, it's a public health commercial, or it's a commercial for a cell phone, or it's and it's always like, hey, y'all, let me tell you about the new 2022 Mitsubishi Galant. I can't even say the word, but it's always, but there was so many weird vaccine commercials telling Black people, and I was like, this is never going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there were
you're not
weird.
Get us.
I agree. There were some pretty odd ones. I feel like, and I truly don't remember it well enough to even be able to articulate it fairly. But I do remember watching a commercial that essentially had the feeling of a dude being like, "What's up, niggas? Me and the squad is getting vaccinated out here. If you ain't vaccinated, you can't get down with our crew." And it's like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody talking like this. This isn't a real human being that you found. This is truly the most hateful stereotype you could come up with for what you think Black people need to be persuaded into joining the vaccinated camp.
And because I'm a Black woman, all the odds were like, I'm getting vaccinated for my family. As a hardworking Black woman, single Black woman out here in these streets, Yeah. But girl, do it for your family. And I was like, but I have 2 dogs. I have the opposite of that.
I ain't got no family. What's up?
Yeah.
My dog ain't gonna get sick.
I have my dogs and my white mom. That's it.
Yeah, there are 3 dogs in history that got COVID and they're fine. Nobody, you know what I mean? They did all that shit where they were telling us, oh no, Chim Chim at the zoo got COVID and Chim Chim was fucking okay. Everybody was perfectly fine when everything was said and done.
I mean, this has been a traumatic experience overall, so it's hard to remember all the details of it. But do you remember how like some exotic animals were getting vaccinated before people were?
No, absolutely.
Like lions, tigers, bears type of shit?
Yeah, no, they were real concerned with making sure that these animals that they've been keeping in captivity against their will
Right.
for
For profit.
decades for profit
Yeah.
remain profitable,
Mhm.
whereas human life was not a priority.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting sad, we're getting morbid, we're accusing them of treating Black people worse than animals, and I think some of those accusations are fair. But what we need to do is jump into a little bit of this research.
All
So
right.
one of the things that I found that I guess was most surprising for me was how efficient some of the propaganda actually is, right? That, like, again, so many of the things that they talk about in terms of propaganda feel like they would easily be sort of dismissed. That, like, I as a reasonable person, or you as a reasonable person, can look at this and go, I see the trick in this. I know how commercials work. I know the things that you're saying are not necessarily true. But as it turns out, I read this article that suggested that 2/3 of the anti-vax material that we see on the internet can actually be traced back to just 12 influencers/accounts.
Mm-hmm.
12.
Yeah. That's the
It's
dirty
just,
dozen.
yeah, just 12 people are like fully controlling the masses on the internet. And that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's nuts.
Yeah, like, what do
Yeah.
you do with that?
Listen, I mean, I also have to monitor my TikTok usage because they just recommend me shit to buy on Amazon all day long. So if I was just like a little more gullible, you know what I mean, less reasonable than I am, I could
Yeah.
have got. I get it. I almost bought a broom that has a vacuum on it, a dustpan and a vacuum. Why?
Whoa.
Because TikTok told me to. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I could have not gotten the vaccine.
And
Easy.
the vacuums have been technology that's existed for a long time now, and I think they haven't improved that much because we did the best we could with them the first time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're supposed to be attaching all that shit to it because it's not going to work.
Right. Exactly.
And you would have just fell for the ruse
Listen.
because TikTok told you so.
They had a cute sound and it was all aesthetic. So yeah, of course. I'm not shocked. That's true.
Damn. Okay. So what I guess surprised me the most with these 12 influencers/accounts is that the material just seems to be amplified and spread through our own algorithms, right? That, like,
Mm-hmm.
essentially it's, I decide I'm going to post some anti-vax shit, and then you and your friends, your cohort, whatever it is, then take that information and make it hella loud for your communities, and then that community makes, it's truly a pyramid scheme of bad ideas, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, the sites that are claiming to crack down on this stuff, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the TikToks, all the places that have poisoned your life.
Yeah.
Well, Twitter, I skipped over Twitter.
Well,
Twitter
I
was
mean,
the
you
one that
know,
hurt you the most, it sounds like.
yeah. Well, it just hurt my ego, but it's all right. I
All
make
right.
it.
But they claim to be cracking down on sort of like this irresponsible language or ideas or whatever it is. But the ultimate reality is that these sites cannot exist without clicks and without views. And if you take away this powerful deity-like group of influencers, suddenly you're losing viewership. You're losing opportunities for clicks and for sales and for vacuums to be pushed down the throats of the people who want them. And so subsequently,
Right.
they leave these accounts up, and the accounts continue to do exactly what the fuck they've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess my question for you is there anything you think we can do about this?
I mean, divest. Get off of it. Like, please. I mean, and maybe it's because look, I might be an outlier here, but I deleted Facebook. I deleted Twitter. I sometimes get on TikTok, but not really. I archived most of my Instagram. I'm just like, you don't have to spend so much time on social media.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it's okay to put a block on it, to take off the app, because I don't know of another way to stop it, right? Like there doesn't appear to me to be a way to stop the algorithm from, for better or for worse, doing its thing, for good and for bad, right? So it's like, how about I just live my life and like get my news and all of that the old fashioned way, visiting Google, which is also an algorithm which is specifically tailored to me and my
Yeah.
interest. So, I'm going back on what I just said, but
No, but I think you're making a really, I guess, fair and important point here, because one of the things that it made me think about is how often, because if it's 12 influencers, that tells you that not as many people as we think actually believe in the shit that's being said, right? That it truly is just a person says a thing and then it then gets spread out by a bunch of people who probably don't even believe it necessarily
mhm,
or care about the shit, but are
right.
willing to kind of invest in the antics of the moment, right? But part of the people investing in it aren't just people who believe it, but are in fact people who don't believe in it. And they're some of the worst spreaders of the
Yeah.
misinformation, because you see somebody say some wild shit, then you screenshot it and you dunk on them. You go on the internet and you go, look at this dumb motherfucker. I can't believe anybody would be
Mhm.
this stupid. And in doing that, you're creating dialogue around their stupidity, even if your intention was just to make them look less than.
Right. And that works until it doesn't. At a certain point, when people shit on things too much, at least for me, I can say, I go, well, now, wait a minute. Why is everybody shitting on this so bad? Let me go
Mm-hmm.
investigate myself. And suddenly I'm clicking on their shit. I'm scrolling through the comments. I'm liking, I'm like reporting, I'm engaged in it in a way that's like, it doesn't serve me. And it also doesn't serve my like point of view. It doesn't mean anything for my real life. So yeah, I mean, just listen, there's always something you can be doing. Is your laundry folded? Is your floors clean? Have you read a book? Have you called an old friend? Have you
Yeah.
written anything or thought hard about like have you baked a cake? What there's shit in your life you can do other than scroll. Get off
And
the
I'll be
internet.
honest, I haven't done any of the things you just listed, and I feel terribly ashamed. But I do think that at its core, that point is very, very real and true and needs to be considered as we approach all of this shit. That like the reality is that like we don't have nearly as much control as we think we do. When the bagel boss bugged the fuck out in that restaurant and he was cussing the dude out and he was a little fella and we all laughed at how little he was and stupid he
Mhm.
was, he capitalized on that.
Yeah.
He then went on to become like, he made money off
Mhm.
of being a piece of shit in a bagel restaurant. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's not something that was our intention, nor is it something we can control. It just is. And
Yeah.
so until we reach a point where we can just look at this shit and go, I'm not going to engage with that. I'm just going to let that die off the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
We're always going to be victims of the algorithm.
Right. I mean, there is something to there's like a saying for this, but you know, whatever you put your attention to, it like spotlights it, right? And makes it amplifies kind of, even if it's not what you are into or what you believe, like turn the spotlight of your attention and intention somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think that's fair.
It's
And
not
it
always
also,
easy to do, but
no, it's truly one of the hardest things in the world right now to like put your phone down and not be a part of whatever social media is telling you you need to be a part of. Like, I think so much of our human worth, unfortunately, has been deeply tethered to our numbers and identity online. And
mhm,
it feels insane to be the one person who's choosing not to be a part of that stuff. But at the same time, I do think it's until we can collectively find a way to step outside of that, we're not ever going to reach the happiness we were aiming for.
yeah.
One of the things that this reminds me of, because you brought this up earlier, this medical racism and the new apartheid, that film that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is working on, or worked on rather, and super effective for Black people. Oh, all the Black people I know are constantly talking about medical racism, the new apartheid. It's all over the streets, and 106 in Park, they play that at the end of all the videos. Medical apartheid, it's killing it out there. But the point is, one of the things that they talk about in sort of like the creation of this thing, right, is the sort of like intentional strategy that they even used when it came to building the information. That like part of the strategy he and his team were employing is talking to reputable Black educators and experts and having them talk through their own personal fears and the history of mistreatment by the American government as it relates to like vaccines in the previous generations. And then they're applying that logic to contemporary conversations unbeknownst to the people they're speaking with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of, there was like one lady in particular who sat down, did the interview. Vaccines never came up. They didn't even use the word vaccine. It was not a thing. They just talked about the history of the medical community abusing people of color. And
Yes.
she didn't even realize until after the interview was done, when she asked, "Who else are you interviewing?" and they couldn't give her names, that maybe something was up, you know?
Yeah, they truly like did a
They
little like
hoodwinked.
switcheroo on her, a little
Yeah.
white devil bait and switch. And
Mm-hmm.
they went, we just want to know your thoughts as a historian and as this intellectual about all of this stuff. And then afterwards they were like, "Gotcha, bitch. You work for
Yeah.
you work for the QAnon crazies, you
Yeah.
stupid ass." And now that's where she's at. It's just a lady who has to go to now real news sources and be like, "Hey y'all, they tricked me. I don't want you to think this is what I'm into personally, but
Amazing that she had to go on an apology tour for being misled by the producers of this documentary who were trying to mislead the public, you know?
yeah. I mean, and part of it is like it just shows you how easily we can all find ourselves being manipulated. This isn't an unintelligent person, right? She's
Mm-hmm.
not a dumb lady, but she's being placed in circumstances where it feels like you're doing the right thing by sharing your thoughts on this. And then however you share it, even if it is real information, can easily be manipulated into other stuff. I
Yeah.
remember years ago, my wife and I think this is before we were married, we were like walking in Hollywood and we passed a place called Museum of Psychology and Death.
I know it well.
You know the Museum of
I know
Psychology and
that's
Death.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
for those of you that don't know, the Museum of Psychology and Death is like a really interesting hooky type name. That's it's a museum right next to Chick-fil-A out in the heart of West Hollywood. And we were
Mm-hmm.
walking and we were like, holy shit, that seems like an interesting place. We'll go in there and we'll check out what they got going on. And I think
Oh
it's free.
no.
You can
It
just
is
walk
free.
in and it's a free
Yeah.
museum. And when you're walking in, that begins by telling you all the fucked up shit that psychology and sort of like the government has sort of done to manipulate and hurt people, specifically like disadvantaged people throughout history. And you see little
Mm-hmm.
babies in cages and people being stuffed with electrodes, just electrodes up their butt and electrocuted
Dang.
till they are
They
less.
talk out people's butts. That's
Yeah, they go up the
wild.
butts in my story. They're doing all kinds of wild shit. And you're like, damn, this is a crazy museum. I never knew about none of this stuff. And then at some point in the museum, you get to a room where they're like, also, you shouldn't take medicine. And you're like, yo, when this flip? And they're like, yeah, and don't give your kids medicine either because medicine's bad for you. And then by the end of it, you realize, holy shit, this is a Scientology museum the entire time. It's all just propaganda for Scientology. And then at the end, there's just a dude with a clipboard being like, can I have your name? And you got to be like, no, I don't want to give you my name.
Yeah.
And you run out of there and you don't buy nothing from the gift store and you just fucking beat it. But it's that, right? That like some of what they're saying wasn't untrue, but what they want you to gain from it is wrong and dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that place is, I mean, I don't know if it's just because I have a natural distrust of anything that looks too organized. Like, I guess because like I I went to high school here in Los Angeles, so I
Mm,
basically grew up here. So for me, I've been ducking and dodging the Scientologists for damn near 20 years now. So I was
yeah.
well aware that like what that museum was, because I remember like walking past it as a young person. But to the layman who maybe has never encountered Scientology propaganda before, they would be like you walk in, like, oh shit, this is, because they also have a museum of death in Hollywood. They have a museum of sex. They have
Yeah.
Ripley's. Believe it or not, you're like, oh shit, this is just like a little offbeat weird museum. Let me check it out. And then it's just straight up propaganda. Wild.
Yeah, and frankly, the Museum of Death is not what they promise either. It's just a room full of stuff that they've purchased from serial killers on
Yeah, which is
eBay.
strange.
Yeah, it's just like, here's the toothbrush Jeffrey Dahmer used after he ate all those babies, and it's like, God damn, I don't think that this is as much a Museum of Death as it is like some dude's fetish that he's like put on
Right.
display for all to enjoy.
Right. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's all scary and haunting, and it's hard to know what's what. And to your point, and I do think this is a great point for us to leave on before break. I think the biggest point that I hope we can all pull from this is the only way we can effectively not get duped by anti-vax or Scientology or any other kind of bullshit.
Or the keto propaganda machine.
Yes, keto, whatever it is. It's the only way that we can avoid it is to just pull ourselves out of the game more than to keep thinking we can outsmart the game. The house always wins. This casino ain't gonna stop getting its guap. So just leave,
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn. All right, we're gonna take a break. We'll be back with more Madison Shepard, more My Mama Told Me. And we are back.
Later, he gets the rebound, passes it to the man, shoots it, and boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah, we're back here with more Madison Shepard, more My Mama Told Me. We're still talking about the possibility that we're getting bamboozled. The black people are being bamboozled by these anti-vax propagandists. These people who want us to not get vaccinated. You worked in the vaccine space.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know, what was the main reason these older black people, sounds like particularly older black people were the main ones being like, nah, not gonna do it. What was the main reason they gave you for why they were like, nah, I'm straight on this vaccine shit?
I don't know if you ever try to press up an older black person for something that they don't want to give you, like some information about themselves, especially when you're like, in a position of kind of assumed power. They're not going to they're not going to tell you shit.
No, they are not.
All I got was like, are you sure? Like, we could talk about it. I have a medical professional right here. You could talk to this nurse, dentist, whoever was administering the shot that day next to me. And they were like, nope, sorry, not going to do it. And
no, thank you.
Yeah. And of course, like I know why that is. It's, because of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and, Henrietta Lacks and this long history of Black people being abused specifically by the medical community. But it was interesting to me because, like, also, I was like digging around before I got on this call with you, but like, San Francisco in the 1900s, I guess they had a plague outbreak and they got it in their heads that it was only Chinese Americans who were spreading the plague. So they made a law in San Francisco in 1900 that all Chinese people or people who they considered to be Chinese had to get some sort of like vaccine against the plague. So it's not just like specifically Black people that have been targeted. I mean, there's a long history of like Native people being horribly abused and mistreated and either experimented on or not given treatment or not given the vaccines or medicines that would save their lives. It's also like Native people and it's Latinx folks. It's not just us who have been victimized in this way. But because I'm Black, I'm like, come on, please, I will give you the shot right here. It was strange.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've talked about it a ton on this podcast, but truly some of the birth of even our medicines in this country were born from foul experiments that were used on Native Americans and black people, black
Mm-hmm.
slaves, that like
Yeah.
literally our technology for like OBGYNs was born from them, from one dude just doing fucked up experiments on black women while he had them held captive as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not unreasonable to be like, nah, I don't trust that shit. And then even in watching the way that COVID was handled throughout this entire process, right? That like there's obviously a bunch of things that we were just learning and discovering. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, because of the way the news works, we have to speak in these definitive statements when in fact some of these things are just up in the air and we
Yeah.
need time to figure it out. But then there's a lot of things that they just made you make choices about that truly didn't need to be choices.
Right.
Like even being on sets, I head write for a show, which meant that I'm technically I'm not on camera, which means that they have to treat me differently than a person that's on camera in
Yeah.
this case. And when they do, they go like, this was height of the pandemic. They were like, yo, if you need to talk to the star of the show, you need to put on goggles.
Yeah.
Because we're finding that COVID's actually now being spread through the eyeball. And if you ain't got on goggles, you can't go over there.
They still make me wear goggles at work
Yeah.
when I talk to talent. Yeah.
And it's nuts because the reality is now we're, however many months away from that, and nobody's brought up goggles once as a viable way of avoiding COVID or any kind of sickness. And it just was them guessing. And I get it. We should try to figure out ways to prevent this thing. But like also, God damn it, you made me look so stupid with those fucking goggles on. And now I'll never believe you about any of the other things that you try to tell me.
I mean, remember when everyone was wiping down their groceries or packages that came in? Or
Yeah.
like there was so many things because we just had so little information that we just kind of had to go with, okay, well, I guess this makes sense because the news said it. Okay.
Yeah.
But like nobody caught COVID from their groceries like that,
There was an article I read, this is probably a year and a half ago, where they were saying that they were testing for COVID via anal swabs. That like if you went to the airport, you would just get your anus swabbed to see if you had COVID. And I still don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
That it appeared in an article that looked like it came from somewhere reputable, but truly it could have been manipulated information, or I could have just been going with what was the funniest thing to see that day. and I don't fucking know, but you goddamn right. I have told people that's what they're doing over there. I'm not irresponsible. Like
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
gonna do the shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, I mean, you're human. You're allowed.
I shouldn't be. And that's part of the problem. I shouldn't be allowed to do shit. I am not a big boy. I'm a big old idiot. So one of the other things that I thought was worth mentioning that I read that I think was actually a really helpful articulation that I had never heard before. But one of the things that an article I read warned about is the conflation, the sort of like confusion that's being, the mixing up between someone who is vaccine hesitant versus someone who is an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That like a lot of times we are using this very hard, definitive language about individuals who are expressing their hesitancy around vaccines and saying they are anti-vaxxers, when in fact a lot of them are not like, yo, I wouldn't fuck with any vaccine, or no, I don't believe in this stuff. It's more, I'm just scared given the circumstances of this individual vaccine or given my current state in the world. That hesitancy, I think, should be treated with a little more care and grace, because that, in my opinion, is how you get people to actually come all the way around to getting the shot in the long run.
Yeah, fully. And I mean, I would say that, aside from the a handful of Black people that, the older Black people who outright were like, nah, fuck this, I'm not getting it, even if you're offering it to me right here and now, we had people when we were filming the show last summer who were just like, no, and I know these Black people's hearts. It's not like they're being like you say, anti-vax, but they are being vaccine hesitant. That is probably a better way to describe Black people's relationship to the vaccine. Because even though I got it and I helped, thousands of people get it, I was also hesitant about it, and it's just, it just is what it is. But I like that phrase, hesitancy. I think it's more correct.
Yeah, I think so. And even when you look at the numbers, and it's part of what makes, I think the odd propaganda game so dangerous is that part of what the targeting of Black people for this propaganda suggests is that Black people are like otherwise just refusing to get vaccinated or refusing to participate in any of this stuff. And that's just not true statistically. And this is, some of that information I was trying to figure out earlier. But statistically, it looks like that Black people hover around like 57% as of between March 1st to March 7th March 1st of last year to March 7th of this year. That like 57% of Black people are tabulating that we've been vaccinated, right? And then for white people, it's coming in at 62%. It's not this massive like difference in terms of like the numbers between these communities. In fact, the only people who are really like just fully fucking committing to the vaccinations are Asian people. Asian people are like, fuck yeah, give me that shot. I ain't fucking around with this, because they're all the way up at like 84% of the Asian community is bought into vaccines. But it's truly like we're talking about the difference in small percentages, and they're making it seem as if like, Black people are just this impossible group to get vaccinated, and really the most vocally anti are white people.
Right. I mean, listen, if they can make something our fault, they will find a way to make it our fault,
Yes.
But I mean, I'm just circling back to that idea of like, vaccine hesitancy, because it's like there are also some underlying medical conditions which would prohibit people from getting the vaccine, including, but probably high on the list compared to anything else, is people who are highly allergic to things, like just people who have a history of anaphylaxis, which is like such a severe allergic reaction where your throat closes and you nearly die. Those people, and folks, you don't know if you're going to be allergic to a new vaccine or not, because, it's new. The people who fall in that category, or know people who do, I'm like, yeah, like it's, I get it,
Yeah.
but that's a small population, but it's still present.
It's still present. And obviously there's a bunch of people who I think are unfairly associating themselves with people who have real risks and real fears for the intention of whatever like crazy shit they have going on.
Whatever their agenda is. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're anti as much as it is you are taking proper risk or assessment of risk before you take it on. And I don't think that that's a terrible thing. Now, where I do think it starts to become complicated is what is the end goal for all of this stuff, right? Like when Kyrie Irving, for example, and I think we all struggle with wherever Kyrie is at times, but I do think part of what Kyrie was saying wasn't insane, of being like, it is weird that our job is essentially asking us to take this thing so early into the sort of like testing of the vaccine and making sure, I want to make sure that it's healthy for my body, that it's not going to have like a weird reaction. While that's not the response that I personally had, I can respect someone wanting to do that kind of, take that kind of care and do that kind of research. But unfortunately, I think what becomes, or what often happens, is people don't do any work beyond that moment. Right? You stop doing research. You're not actually trying to figure out what the best result of it is. You're just saying, I'm going to do my research. And then you go watch Is This Cake on Netflix.
Right.
And that it ain't going to help any of us in the long run by ignoring your responsibilities.
No, I mean, and of course with like Kyrie's, quote on that, I mean, look, I understand why an athlete who uses their body to make their money, and in his case, creating intergenerational wealth, I get it. You know what I mean? Like why he would be like, I'm not sure. But if you work at like Costco, maybe get it. Maybe it's gonna be all right for you. You work at Target, I think you at risk, baby. Go ahead and check into that.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. And frankly, whatever poison you can afford to eat based off of your target salary, you're dying either way. So go ahead, get that vaccine. Die a traditional route, not the route of dying from a easily preventable virus.
Yeah.
Well, my goodness, I think we intended on having a party, and then it turned into it turned tough right at the end. It got dark right towards the end of it. But this was a fun episode, I think, overall. Madison, could you tell the people at home where they can find you, what cool shit you have going on? Obviously, it's not at Twitter, but everywhere else, maybe.
No, it's literally just at Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at Madison_Shepard. I would love it if you followed me. I am very limited in what I post, so I won't fuck up your algorithm if that's your concern. Follow me there. And yeah, if you're in the LA or Southern California area, I post what stand-up shows I have on my website, which is MadisonShepard.com. And just stay tuned. A bitch got stuff. Look, stuff is happening. We don't know. We're just going to stay open to the possibility of what's forthcoming. So.
Okay, stay open to the possibility. Follow Madison on Instagram. Nowhere else. Nowhere else. She's banned on every other website, and you knew that going into this. And check out her stand-up. And as always, you can follow me at Langston Kerman on all platforms. I'll never leave. I'll never cower out of these spaces. And watch Bust Down. It's on Peacock. It's available. It's streaming now.
It's funny.
Thank you.
It is
cuss
so
a lot,
funny.
and boy, did they make a mistake to let us. And finally, you can subscribe to the podcast. And if you wish to send me drops or send me your thoughts, you can send them to mymommapod@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, that's it. Bye, bitch.
Money.